Well, let's take the conversation from different aspect now. We have Mr. Ogubi, Yusuf Ogubi is head product restructuring or structuring and origination effects Nigeria. He joins us via the telephone now. Thank you, Mr. Yusuf, for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's nice to be here.
Yes. So Russia, it's one of Nigeria's top sources for imported items, especially food items. Weight is there. So Nigeria imported about 800 goods worth over 800 billion naira in 9-month period between January and September last year, representing about 3.7% of Nigeria's total import in the same period. So, but the recent invasion by Russia has led to various sanctions by the Western economies. So, let's get your opinion on these. Do you think this will affect our trade relations in any way, especially with Russia?
I wouldn't say it affects our trade relations with Russia from a broad perspective, because Nigeria has a neutral standpoint when it comes to our foreign policy in situations like this. But then there are multiple sanctions on Russia, most of which Nigeria is also obliged to also comply with. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, logistics out of Russia itself has become quite difficult, if not impossible, in the past few days, with virtually all the major shipping lines cancelling their trips to and from Russia. So it even makes it practically impossible to do any business with Russia. In addition to that, there's been also a cancellation of Russia has been evicted from the SWIFT system, and that means that there will be a lot of challenge in paying for any commodity that is imported from Russia as of now. So when it comes to the practical standpoint, when it comes to the policy standpoint, Nigeria has to comply with these sanctions. Also, when it comes to the practicability of any trade transaction with Russia as of now, that's almost impossible to carry out. So it would affect our trade relationship, our trade transactions with Russia, no doubt.
Now, let's look at one of the top 3 commodities Nigeria import from Russia is wheat. And as you know, that trade value, the trade relations or the value, it's worth about $2 billion. So Nigeria imported over 144 billion naira of wheat. That's the value according to the Central Bank of Nigeria. So, but with this current situation, do you see any disruption in the supply system?
So as at the end of 2020, I haven't seen the numbers as at the end of 2021. So we imported about 19% of our total imports, after wheat imports from Russia. So that means that's almost 1/5 of what we consume in Nigeria imported from Russia. And if this kind of situation extends, is protracted, that means that we won't have to look for other means to get the wheat. Already there are increased demand for wheat from the United States, from India, from Australia, from Canada. So that means that Nigeria would also have to compete with the other wheat importers across Africa and beyond to get the wheat that we need. But then all of this depends on how long this situation is extended. If we are able to close and conclude this situation in the next few days, hopefully each party is able to kind of de-escalate the situation. That helps us and reduces the challenges we might face. But no doubt we would have to reroute our imports, look for supplies from other countries as well.
So, in your own opinion, what other sources, alternatives in terms of countries that we can source these materials from?
Yeah, so we have the United States. That's our largest trade partner when it comes to wheat. I guess the wheat milling, flour milling companies in Nigeria and other companies that also utilize wheat alternative. But then all of this will be justified by the operational and the financial implications of each of these alternatives. It appears Australia is quite far to Nigeria, so logistically might be a challenge to switch from Russia to Australia. But at the end of the day, what matters is getting the volumes. In some cases, and don't forget, if we're able to de-escalate this situation pretty quickly, we might not really have to go through some of these hassles. But then, United States is an option, India is an option, Australia is another option, Canada is another option as well. So we have a few options. The question is how much will it cost us to switch our supplies from these countries to these countries rather.
I'm going to ask you just about 2 questions before I let you go. With what you have, how much do we consume as a nation, and how long can we sustain this without looking to other countries for supply?
Sorry, can you take that question again?
So I was asking you that as a nation, as a country, how much of this product commodity do we consume at the moment, and then how long can we sustain that within the shore of Nigeria without looking to other countries for supply?
So the truth is, wheat is probably our largest agricultural import that we bring into the country as of today.
That's the point.
And it's pretty critical to the livelihoods of a lot of people. For God's sake, wheat is a staple. It's a staple commodity. We use wheat for bread, for almost everything we consume in the confectionery space. We also use wheat for noodles, and you can imagine how important noodles have become in the diet of children, even young adults, in recent times. So it's important as a food item in the country. So second question is how long can we then stay before we then get into probably panic mode, right?
That's right.
So that depends on the inventory levels across the companies that utilize this commodity. First of all, it's not directly utilized by households, so households don't store wheat. It's the companies that store the wheat and they keep it as inventory. So that means that if these companies have some level of inventory, and I expect that they would have started shoring up their inventory given the threat we've seen in the last 1 month. We won't be able to manage ourselves for a while. Otherwise, these companies might need to quickly ramp up purchases from other countries as well. We can't really say exactly because the inventory level across these companies are privately held data, and they are not available to the public to see. But then one would expect that the private sector would seek maximization of its own activities. So in essence, they would store the inventories they need for a considerable period of time.
So at the moment, you are saying that there is no need for panicking or panic buying, as it were.
I honestly don't think there's any need to panic. I honestly don't think so, because these companies will typically show up their own inventory. Otherwise, they would seek alternative countries to source wheat from. What we might then see at the end of the day is these companies transferring the cost to consumers at the end of the day. So that's where we might feel the brunt. But then I think these companies will seek to optimize their own business operations rather than just allow the business operations to go to zero.
Well, I think we should leave it there. Thank you so much, Yusuf Ogumbi, Head Product Structuring and Origination, Apex Nigeria. Thank you for your time on Business Breakfast.